right away. Joining. Today's topic that we're going to be discussing is the Velocity Wi-Fi 6 CTK. My name is David Parsons. I'm the APT marketing engineer, technical marketing. Let me just put a few people that were on mute. Today's topic, things we're going to talk about. We're looking at the agenda. We're going to have the marketing collateral. We're going to talk about where you can go, where you can our Wi-Fi 6 CTK. We're going to talk about what a CTK is. For some of you, that may be a new acronym. I remember at the GSM we talked about package solutions. We'll give you an explanation of what that name means and why we've changed it. We're going to go through the Wi-Fi 6 presentation. That's the PowerPoint that you can take to your customers and present to them. We're going to go into the Spirent Demo Cloud. This is or SDC for short. This is an environment that you'll all have access to go and run Velocity demos, and specifically this Wi-Fi 6 demo. We're going to go into that Spirent Demo Cloud. We're going to actually do a demo, so we're going to go through a couple test cases, and we'll just give you the highlights of how you would select the topology, how you would select that test case to run against that topology, execute that test case, reserve the equipment if you're going to run that test case, at a set time for a demo that you like to. Obviously, you can reach out to me, and I'll give you some information about exactly how to enable you for that type of demo. We're also going to look at dashboards. An important thing that when we talk about any of our CTKs that we're going to present, we're going to have some dashboards that go along with these visualizations of our test cases, of the data that we generate from this test as a solution. And again, we'll finish. I know we have an hour. We're going to try to keep it within that hour. I'm sure many of you know there's a basketball game on. I'm sure there's a lot of people that like to see that that game as well. So without further ado, I'm gonna jump over to my main presentation. The first thing that we're going to cover is the marketing collateral. So just so everyone knows, I'm going to send out links to these after the meeting. Just wanted to give everyone, in case you're eager to get to it. If you go into SharePoint and you go into APT Knowledge Hub, there's a continuous test kit folder right under the APT Knowledge Hub. Velocity Wi-Fi 6. There was a news flash that came out and actually gave you a presentation of your, there's a data sheet that was associated. Just to that's where you'll see that data sheet that's available. This is one that you take to your customers that are doing Wi-Fi 6 testing and leave that with them. Gives a brief overview to our Wi-Fi 6 solution is, and it's really a teaser for future follow-up conversations about our Wi-Fi solution. Also in there is the presentation, and this is one that you can cut up in any way you want. There's going to be a bit of it that talks about our continuous test kit, and that's going to be the first thing that we're going to kind of go through is what is a continuous test kit or what is a CTK. 6 presentation in there as well, which really goes through our Wi-Fi 6 CTK solution. I'll also put in this location at the end of the meeting. This will be where I'll have the recording of this session, as well as I'm going to create a links page that'll guide you to both the Spirent developer community, the Spirent Demo Cloud, the developer community as well, and any links that we discuss today during the meeting. And again, just to let everyone know, as people are coming in, you're going to be put on mute, and I will, if you need to unmute yourself, if you have any problems, just send me a quick chat message, and I'll make sure that we. All right, so the next, we'll go right into the CTK overview. So this is our Spirent Wi-Fi or continuous test kit. So we're going to give you an overview of what a continuous test kit is. We'll jump right into that. So a continuous test kit is a building block or a collection of automation assets, configurable workflows, analysis tools that we assemble together to accelerate the deployment, development and deployment of a continuous test environment or continuous test automation solutions. So I'll talk briefly about why do we want to do this. The first thing is that Velocity is obviously a lab as a service platform that we've delivered to a number of customers. And these continuous test kits are to highlight our capabilities within the test, within the Velocity platform, to really highlight our capabilities there and kind of show off some of the things that we've developed over the last couple of years. The second is that a lot of our customers, there's a lot of pain for them to deploy automation. It takes there's a certain amount of time, and this is really to accelerate their onboarding of automation. So rather than just selling them some automation tools and maybe some training associated with it, this gives them a proven sort of set of methodologies and quicker implementation of automation in their environment. And it really does essentially reduce their cost of entry from the automation perspective. In these continuous test kits, so obviously today we're going to be talking about the Wi-Fi, but we're going to be we're working on other continuous test kits as well. Some of those will be driven, specifically from me, but there's other and as such that have been developing, automation solutions for various customers in various domains. We'll be working on integrating those into our environment, creating the marketing material for them for those specific domains, and pushing those out as time goes on. And really, we want to have a building block for a set of. And we just want to have a set of those continuous test kits available so that we can address different domains and different market segments. So components, what comes in the continuous test kit? So what we're really focusing on here is it's a reference automation design. It's how do you continue. For some of our customers, this is a bit of a mystery. We really want to focus on giving them the capabilities of deploying continuous test environments. Integrated topologies. Again, this is about having all the device adapters and system automation that they would require. Reference test cases. So again, we want to deliver these proven test methodologies, industry standards. We'll see some of those today with the Wi-Fi solution. Analytic dashboards. Anytime you've wanted to present data to management, this is a real sexy way to do it, where you have easily accessible dashboards through a web UI that you can track live testing metrics and get a visualization of states of your testing activities. We're also going to provide define our implementation and capabilities, as well as we're going to have a demo lab, and that's what we're specifically going to be talking about today, is the Spirent Demo Cloud and Developer Network. And some of these are an environment where they can go online to a website, pull down some of. So again, executable, demonstratable with some online tools that they can also access. So we're talking about service providers and CTK. So it's built on top of Velocity's modular service-based architecture with REST APIs. And this is really talking about how we can integrate into it. So Velocity is a management portal. Obviously, we have access management. Giving users capabilities to tie certain access to certain equipment. Automation management. Capturing, queuing, executing of automation. environment management, so we can really focus in on the actual modeling and connectivity of actual systems under test. So again, this is back to our capability, 1, layer 2, layer 3, and a network from sitting at your desk, servicing lab configuration, and also resource discovery, provisioning, scheduling of resources that you would have in your lab, and really giving the users an overall picture of the lab state, those sorts of things. So those are all the things that you would see in the Velocity set of services. We also have, a Cabana portal, which again, this is really about building visualizations to what's going on either in your test execution or your test as a service, or tracking the utilization of particular equipment, a live status of what's exactly going on in your lab at any given time. And again, we have a few extra bells and whistles that we have. We can actually tap into the message bus on certain key within the lab. That be maybe finding something, an error that occurs in the lab, and we can actually trigger some type of event, whether it be a self-healing event or something that we actually reach out to a live person to take a look at some of the issues that we may see. So when we talk about connectivity, so we talk about software-defined connectivity, and this has been a real, pillar of our, where we have scaling infrastructure to support, many different kinds of connectivity within the lab. So we have a common GUI, all right. So you can open up Velocity in a web app or web browser, and really we have all these different forms of connectivity that we can establish within the lab. Everyone's probably familiar with our layer 1, layer 2 connectivity, but of course we've extended that over the last number of releases, those capabilities to be layer 2, 3 EVPN networks. We also have capabilities within the virtual environment for OpenStack and VMware. Those are probably two most common that you'll see in the industry, as well as really opening it up to the software-defined networks, where you can utilize Velocity to define all that connectivity that you would have in a software-defined topology. So that connectivity, really, when you integrate any of these solutions within Velocity, the connectivity between your devices when you model your topologies, the complexity of a layer 1, layer 2 switch, or even an SDN or network really goes away. It becomes almost invisible, and so you're abstracting that complexity away from the user and really just giving them a simple portal to go and design their systems under test or the testing needs to address their at a particular time, and really build up an environment that they can complete the work activity that they have. So it's a cloud-based user experience. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen this in the past. Many of you are familiar with Velocity, but it certainly is worth reviewing. Again, we're a highly scalable, flexible, web-based test as a service and a lab as a service platform. That's really what we want to focus on, right? We're both a test and lab as a service solution, right? So we can manage our abstract control, so all the resources that we have that are available to us, that we can we can service a user for a specific resource, or we can give them the flexibility of saying, I need a generic resource of this type with maybe these types of ports. And so that's really a lot of power, where particular pieces of hardware aren't as important anymore as types of hardware are. We can visualize and instantiate physical and virtual hybrid test environments, and this is a real differentiator for us as well, where we actually kind of play well in both worlds, in the virtual space as well as the physical space. So automate environment setups and teardowns. And this is actually one of the capabilities that I'm sure everyone's seen in our last release, last couple of releases with a product called IWA, or solution called IWA, which lets us create all of these really rich reports on our actual physical interaction, or our interaction with our actual devices that we have inside of Velocity. And that's really a user-driven, users go in, make connections to systems, issue commands, and all of the commands that they've issued and the responses that come back from those commands can be stored in logs and shared amongst the team and enhances collaboration. And again, all of the things that we do inside of Velocity, whether it's reservation, resource utilization, test executions, all of that data gets put into our large data lake, or our data pool that you'd see as specifically it's Elastic that we use, and then you can visualize that data. And this really gives you deep correlation and trending capabilities, so you can actually see what's going on either in your test environment or your lab environment, and really it drives certain business decisions and business behaviors. So when we're talking about delivering best-in-class automated tests, I think this is a really key. These three things is very. If you keep this in mind when you're developing your automation, you create great automation methodologies. You want your tests to be meaningful, you want them to be stressful, and you want them to be repeatable. Right. So this is in some of this. If you look at the different components in a test environment, right, where we see network engineers that are building meaningful and stressful test cases. That means they know the products. They know how the product breaks. They know what parts of the product need to be tested, whether it's new functionality or capabilities that just tend to be more fragile. But when we talk about repeatable, that's where our automation engineers become much more valuable, right? We take those sets of requirements, the meaningful and stressful test case, and we make that repeatable. Add the capability of doing things that you wouldn't be able to do necessarily manually because of the nature of having to repeat those test cases or loop those test cases and really add additional stressful activities. Oops. And again, everyone benefits from that, right? Because as you execute those test cases, you take those meaningful, stressful, repeatable test cases, you execute them. Then we get into an operation mode where we actually can share, we can consume, and we can analyze. So really, the pillars of good automation is creating some good automation, having it consumable by a large user base, and then since that consumption of that automation will generate metrics or data, we want then have a capability to do deeper analysis on those executions of that automation. So when we talk about a continuous test workflow, I think what's key here is that we have an integrated pipeline of automated workflows for continuous testing, and really this is where our CTKs come into play. We're obviously trying to build meaningful test cases that are stressful and that are repeatable, and the reason for that is that there is a great deal of pressure to do this, to get into this continuous test methodology where you have new content that's coming in on a accelerated basis that has a triggered event that you want to. And so if you just look at what that pipeline would generally look like in an environment, this is a pretty generic pipeline, I understand. But you would see, you have some form of trigger. So some event occurs, new firmware arrives from a vendor. You can have test bed setup. So, basically automate a scheduled activity, load firmware software. You generally have some form of a basic sanity check to make sure that everything is in proper working order. And before you would kick off some larger set of performance tests, or we would call them regression tests. And then you would have some type of analysis of those results, right? Whether it's pass or fail. Obviously, if it's pass, you would deploy that firmware software or integrate it into the release for production. If it fails, you would then pass back meaningful information about the state of why it failed. and then the user could then take appropriate action on that. The velocity economic license model. I think this is something that is really a competitive advantage within Velocity, where we have an unlimited number of name users with concurrent usage. So we have users are each user on a system consumes only one access license and is returned to the pool when the user logs off. That's a really attractive model for our customers because they can service a much larger pool of users with less number of licenses. And it really is a competitive advantage against some of the competition that we have out there that has a more restrictive model from a licensing perspective. And it also just generates a lot less frustration for our customers, which is also, it's much more appealing in the use of the product. Again, we also have some capabilities when we talk about the server licenses, right? There's only one server license that's required to support all those users. Each system supports an unlimited number of environments or test beds per server. Velocity is built on this really rich structure of farming out the automation tasks, so it really keeps a certain level capabilities from an execution. So the more executions you run, it's still quite light on the Velocity server because all of that hardcore automation execution is done on these external agents. And of course, we also have some intelligence that we built in there where we can actually process parallel executions, but also queuing. We've given the user capabilities where if you're trying to execute a test case on a certain a set of hardware, it won't just try again at a different time. It'll actually queue that up for you and execute that test case when equipment or resources become available. And again, this is really it's a very attractive model for all of our customers and how they can benefit from they get the maximum benefit from the money that they spend on our product. Another thing to point out is our developer community. So a lot of the CTK resources that you'll see today we'll have one example or two examples that will actually be in this developer community that's going to be downloadable by the customers to actually use. We also put a lot of capabilities in that developer community that our users can download, and again, really, it's about accelerating their path to success with automation. Again, we have proven test and lab automation assets. More specifically, we have drivers, test cases, suites, DevOps apps, dashboards, and more. And it's open and free. Anyone of our customers can log in here today, can download our these iTest assets, and pull them into their environment and use them again as a reference, set of assets. And we've of course developed these with all our years of experience, with all our best practices implemented in these assets. So now we'll get on to the exciting part where we actually talk about this first CTK that we're actually delivering to the market. It's called Velocity Wi-Fi 6 CTK. So Spire and Velocity, so an example workflow and configuration of it's a workflow building blocks to automate the 802.11ax spec. Now I want to point out that while this is an 802.11ax card, that doesn't mean that we can't do the automation on the older legacy Wi-Fi solutions. We certainly can test N and AC, and the reason that we're focused on obviously the newest card, newest capabilities that we have, and testing the newest product. That's probably where we'll see the most market share. But if we have a customer that's testing both AX and some of the older legacy Wi-Fi solutions, we can certainly our solutions will work with those as well. And again, so we're focusing on Wi-Fi 6 performance test suites. So again, it's also configuring, setting up on-demand Wi-Fi environments. That's obviously a pillar of our lab as a service platform of Velocity, is to create environments to systems under test. So we're going to have these automated Wi-Fi test workflows, configurable dashboards. And so every customer that you'll meet will have a different set of ways in which they will want to view their data. I'll show you some examples of how we've configured those dashboards. Again, they're very simple, very customizable for our end users. And again, these suites are highly customizable. This is we'll say a starting point for many of our customers. It'll meet the needs of many of the customers that we have out there. They probably will be able to utilize 99% of the function out of the box. They may have a tweak here, a tweak there, but we have solutions and capabilities to help them with that. So if you're new to Wi-Fi, you may wonder what Wi-Fi 6 means, and I'm using a couple different acronyms there. So 802.11ax is the it's the base technology by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So Wi-Fi 6 means 802.11ax technology. So this is the next generation of access points and clients that you're going to see out there. Wi-Fi 5 is 802.11ac. This is what you probably have at home. Most of your home routers will be AC. Wi-Fi 4, 802.11n, that's some older technology that you have. And again, there's some information here about the Wi-Fi Alliance. It's founded in '99. But again, they're really focused on certifying interoperability between devices, feature specifications, that sort of thing. So what is 802.11ax? What does it address? Really, it's enhancing the operation of the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands to increase the average throughput per station by at least 4 in dense deployment scenarios. So really, we're looking at large indoor, outdoor environments that are going to you're going to want to have a lot in those Wi-Fi access points. So scenarios, obviously, there public areas, corporate offices, hotspots, residential apartments, and stadiums. And again, it's focused on maintaining or improving power efficiency in these stations. So what are some of those challenges that we get? Every time we have a new piece of technology, obviously we have some challenges associated with our testing and validating and certifications of those. So obviously we have hardware testing. There's going to be a large number of gateways and access point combinations. We've been working with a lot of customers that have 3, 4 different vendors, and they have to test all of them in a consistent manner. Feature validation. So we have a complexity of testing. We have new features within the 802.11 spec that we have to execute. Throughput and performance. So again, we're stressing larger systems with higher throughputs. Density of users. We're obviously, since we're one of the deliverables of the AX spec is a larger, more capability for density of users. We need to test against that. Again, in continuous test, this is the thing that we see with all of our customers, is that these access points have a constant release of firmware that they're constantly having to test. We're getting customers that are saying, it used to be they'd get firmware every couple times a month. Now they're getting it once a week, and sometimes often more than once a week. And again, quality tracking. We want to see, are things getting better or worse over longer period of times, and we need some form of visualization that'll let us track that information. Gone are the days of just having binary test cases that tell us whether something passes or fails. We need some richer metrics to track the quality of our products. So what are the test cases or test suites that we actually have in our Wi-Fi solution? So these are 3 ones that we focused on for our first version of the CTK. So these are ready to run automated Wi-Fi test scenarios, parameterized to provide maximum test flexibility. They're really data-driven test cases, and we've called them test case suites at the top. I mean, really, each one of these test cases can run, in hundreds of different scenarios with 100 different parameters, different configurations, and really can address the customer's needs and the customer's testing needs for each one of them. Just to give you a quick highlight on each one of those. Now, rate versus range is probably one of the most common test cases that's run on our access points. Again, we're validating the characteristics of a Wi-Fi throughput as signal strength decreases. The example I always use for this one is that I have my child is watching their Minecraft video. Then, they're going downstairs and out to the backyard, and how does that performance of the streaming of that data from the access point, how far away can they go away from that access point before they start losing, their precious Minecraft video? Mindful, again, certifying multi-client access points, configurations, and validating performance. With 802.11ax, you can go up all the way up to 8x8, so 8 antennas. I don't believe there's a ton of clients right now that have 8x8 capabilities, but again, this is going to be something we're going to be seeing in the future with a lot of that. And so you can actually validate. We're trying to validate and characterize that performance. And again, one of the other pillars of 802.11ax is the multi-client, or the density of the clients. And so we're obviously want to provide testing capabilities where we increase the number of users that are accessing an environment, and to see what their performance of those access points is while we ramp up the number of clients. And those are the three main test categories that we're focused on for the CTK. And again, this is we looked at this pipeline. It's really, the CTK is to fit right in to that pipeline that our customers already have. And this is a specific one, right? Where you can imagine now the trigger, we get a new access point firmware. We set up the test bed with that new firmware. We do a quick sanity check to make sure that the system is up and it's ready. This would be a simple example of that would be that I can reach the internet. I can do some basic ping commands. Then I can do some performance tests, and I'll get some logs, some notifications. I'll do some analysis of the results. I'll make visualizations for that, so I'll have some dashboards that I can review in the morning to make sure everything is as I expect it. Then I'll have some pass-fail, and then we'll obviously, if you're a service provider, you'll pass that firmware software out to production to be released to your customer base. So what is the actual hardware that we're delivering? So the one that you'll see here is the new 802.11ax. So it's an MX2. This is in what we're testing on. There's other versions for different platforms, but really, one of the things I want to point out is there's new MX2.11ax 2v2 module. The 802.11ax2 module is no longer supported. This is going to be out the end of June, early July for customers. So the one that we have the CTKs built upon, and it's not limited, we can certainly convert them for other platforms, is for the N11U or the N4U compatible. And so it has, again, you can go 8x8 or 2 4x4s on 5 gigahertz, or 2 4x4s on 2.4 gigahertz. The other advantage that this card has over previous generations of the card, not of the AX card, but of the AC and N cards, is that it has an internal attenuator. Will actually ramp up to about 63 dB. And for doing most of the rate versus range type attenuating test cases that you would see out there, this is really can suffice for that. So what else do we get? So that's the card that we're using. When we actually execute those test cases, we generate these dashboards. So these are Velocity Wi-Fi 6 CTK analytics. So they're easy to use data analysis, long-term trending and performance. And I've used a number of different, suggestions of what those long-term trending and performance. You can look at the throughputs information as a result. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? You can also compare. So trending would be, looking at one vendor and seeing over a number of firmware releases, is it actually improving? Or if you want to compare two different vendors, maybe I want to see, I'm trying to make a decision between two vendors of what I'm going to deploy out into my production environment. Again, those are ideal visualizations to have for that. So that's the compare, performance across devices. You can also identify performance gaps. One of the test cases we have is one that increases the traffic load for different MIMO releases, and then just sort of kind of identifies if there's any packet loss as we increase the traffic load on that particular connection scenario. we can highlight exactly where this access point may have some gaps. And again, we can also track execution activity. And there's a lot of reasons you do this. One is to see the activity that's in your lab, the testing activity that you have, as well as to identify if there's any going to be any concerns or contention to be able to deliver things. If you see this execution activity ramping really high up, you may need to purchase more equipment so that users can complete their testing in a timely manner through the automation, as well as you can just ensure that your testing activity is proceeding as you would expect, and so you can track to make sure that at the beginning of release or new firmware that you do see a ramp up of activity. So system requirements: what do I need to operate the CTK? And what are your other options? This obviously there's a couple different. Some of your customers will have some of this equipment, may not have some of this equipment. What do they need? So obviously they need the velocity framework, and that is if they don't have it, we have a solution for that. It's pretty easy. Just buy velocity. You'll need an STC chassis. Again, that's an N11U or an N4U. An MX2 11AX card with Wi-Fi 6. That should actually be a 11AX2 V2 Wi-Fi 6 card. iTest is recommended, but is optional, since the test cases are actually canned or pre-configured, and a part of this is a professional service engagement. And they don't specifically need iTest. We do recommend it because, again, one of these things is that it's a starting point for reference design. If you want to manage it, maintain it, improve it, iTest, you'll need iTest to edit those test cases. RF chamber with antennas. Again, this is optional. Many of our customers already have their own chambers. Be it there's a number of different vendors out there for those chambers. Some of them have anechoic chambers that they do some of this type of testing. And as an external attenuator is also another additional option. A lot of customers, instead of using the built-in attenuation that we have inside of the STC, they may choose to have an external digital attenuator. And we've got the integration points for that inside of our test automation. So how do we deploy these packages? So there's a Velocity CTK package, right? So this is the building blocks are free. So we're not actually selling the test cases. What we're actually doing is that we're delivering this with an implementation service. So there's two types. So it requires Spirent Test Center chassis with Wi-Fi modules. So there is that to sell. It requires Velocity license and iTest licensing if required. Again, they may already have one or both of those. And there's also some optional RF equipment. As I mentioned, there's a chamber that they may need, or some antennas, or an attenuator. So the two options that we talked about, the two types of service agreements. So if we have a new, a new Spirent Velocity site, again, this is we call it a greenfield opportunity. For Wi-Fi 6, so you'll need some professional service installation and configuration of the Spirent Velocity. Again, if you're also including iTest, there'll be some iTest there as well. Professional installation and configuration of the CTK. And that really is to get them going, from much quicker than just to hand them the automation, to hand them the software. And again, we provide that training and support so that when the end of the time from when our PS engineers are on site, they'll actually have test cases that are running in their environment on their hardware. So existing Spirent Velocity site, again, so this is, we could call this an upgrade. Professional installation and configuration of the CTK. So this is our professional engineers, service engineers coming on site, installing those test cases, running them, and then also delivering training and supporting them for a period of time as they start to see the benefits of the CTK. So before I get to the actual demo, just give you some contact names. Obviously, I'll be probably your first contact if you have a customer and you need some more information about the CTK, how it would work, that sort of thing. My name is David Parsons, technical marketing engineer. The APT general manager, Patrick Johnson, is there as well. And Gretchen Anderson is our APT marketing specialist. So that's it for the presentation. Now that presentation is available, will be available to you to share with your customers. And I'm going to take you now from the presentation. We're actually going to go into the Spirent, the demo cloud. I know we have about 15 minutes left, so it's not going to take too long to go through this. I'll try to keep it short so we have a little bit of time at the end to go through some Q&A. But I want everyone to be aware of what the Spirent demo cloud actually is. I'm trying to think of when the last time we actually talked about it. You know, it used to be called the Spirent, the production customer demo environment. We've changed it to the name to the Spirent demo cloud. I'll just point out there's a couple different ways to get to it. You can just type in spirentdemocloud.spirenteng.com. That'll get you there. You can also go to STC spirenteng.com.cloud. It'll take you to the same velocity instance. The advantage here is that you can log in to this with your corporate username and password. And when you get in there, and I'll give just to let you know, the first time you log in, it will let you log in, but you won't see any resources or any equipment that you can actually go and reserve. And the only reason that is because we haven't put you in a user group. Our user groups essentially have access to different bits of hardware, and so we'll make those. Once you've logged in for the first time, you can send any of us on this access list here. So you see the 3 admins that we have, and if you send one of us an email, we'll put you into the proper user group so that you can have visibility and access to that equipment. All right, I'll take you through a quick example of how we can actually demo this. It's very straightforward. We'll have a set of libraries, topologies that you can execute on. I'll just type of Wi-Fi. Hold on. So we'll say there's a Wi-Fi 6. This predisposed. I'm going to change the name of this topology probably for tomorrow's session. But right now it's called Luxoff. Luxoff was our partner that actually helped us develop many of the test cases that you'll see that you can run against that. Again, it's a very simple topology. What we have is a traffic generator. So with 2 connectivity. So it's got an Ethernet connection to the gateway. As well as a RF connection into that anechoic chamber in there. We also have a lab server that we use as well. Yeah, you can make a reservation on this equipment and then run a test case. I'm going to actually show you a slightly different methodology. I'm going to actually go and look at the automation asset. So you see under my Wi-Fi, I have certain test cases. So I'll have a set of test cases there for MIMO, multi-client, or rate versus range. Right. So I have a couple different versions here. I have a 2.4 and a 5.0. This is just because we have some canned ones that make it a little bit easier to execute the test cases. You can also go in and just as an easier way to even find out all of the parameters and topologies that you'd have to run. If you go into our reports and you look at our execution, you can actually sort of see what was the last test case that was run. You can just click on that, and there actually is a rerun execution, or rerun that, and it'll actually put in all of the topology information. So if you see here, it's already selected the topology that's appropriate to run for that. The schedule, you can set it immediately. If you want to run it later, you can do that as well. Say we set it for immediate. And you also have all the parameters that are associated with this test case. So in the rate versus range, and I'll just talk about that specific test case, there's obviously a configuration file. There's a list of a parameter list. You have attenuated increments. So this kind of dictates how much you want to change the attenuation. So you can how quickly are we moving it away. So in 5, 10, 15 dB increments. So where are we going to start the attenuation? Oftentimes our customers want to start the attenuation at a higher value because they know that the performance at the lower end is fine, or they just need some padding from a perhaps strong signal. What's the max attenuation that you want to set it to? So this is, again, if you have a digital attenuator, you may want to go beyond 60 dB. You may want to go up to, many of them are up to 90 dB. So this is the client. This is, again, the access point for, the SSID. With the MIMO configuration, here we're using the SDC attenuation. But again, you can set an external attenuator. In this instance, some of the other engagements that we've deployed to them, we've used JFW as an external attenuator. There's many other external attenuators. There's Cytec, Top-Young, that sort of thing. Different ports that you may be using, and again, these can be absorbed inside the topology. The duration between the increments. So I'm going to run traffic at a certain attenuation. How long do I want to run that before I attenuate the signal greater? And how many samples do I want to take within that time period? All right. Yeah, let me just mute that one person. All right. And so then the last piece is, once you've actually set your schedule, we select the topology. In this instance, we set it to auto reserve. So as long as that equipment isn't currently under reservation, it'll actually go and reserve that equipment. You can see the parameters that we've set, which we kind of went through just a minute ago. Any agents, and this is all predefined for us, and you can see that there's a number of agents. Then all we have to do is go off and run that test case. You'll see that it sits in the queued state. It'll move over in a few seconds into the now executing state. The test case itself takes about 15 minutes to run. So we're probably not going to sit here for 15 minutes and watch this execute, but I can give you a bit of an example of what the test report looks like. Again, you can see this here in the online velocity. It just going to give you the execution messages as well as any charts that we've generated as a result of it. Again, this is the rate versus range. What we're looking at essentially here is the throughput over time. But you can also see what your RSSI signal is as the attenuation increases over time. Now that's a single execution of a single test case. There's obviously those three main test cases that can be data driven with those different metrics or different parameters that you can input them. You can put those together into a run list, which is essentially a set of test case executions. Which is what we do on a nightly basis. Once you've run those test cases, then you're going to get, there's going to be test metrics. And again, I'll share all these links with you in that resource SharePoint location. But I just want to kind of highlight some of the dashboarding that we can generate as a result of those executions. Specifically, we're looking at, we have this Velocity Wi-Fi 6 dashboard. This sort of shows a few of our different capabilities. I'll just highlight some of these are we can do different things. Whether you like it in dark mode or you like it in light mode. I personally prefer it in the light mode. I find it's a little bit easier to read, but some people prefer the dark mode. Again, we've got a set of metrics here, or some data that you have available to you. This can be fully customized. It's just text that we sit at the top of the dashboard. Each of these represents the execution of a rate versus range use case. You can see here, this is just over time, right? So as the attenuation increases, you can see that my throughput decreases as you would expect, as well as we can look at what the throughput is as the attenuation increases, or excuse me, the remote signal strength, the RSSI value, as the attenuation increases. Some other ones that are kind of interesting, right? I put a couple of these plots up here. We can see a MIMO 3x3 TCP for 5 gigahertz. Again, we're looking here at the throughput versus the packet loss. And so you can see here that as I increase the traffic load as a percentage, I can see what the throughput actually is, and I can also track the packet loss. And this is really interesting information for a lot of our customers to see, if there's any of these gaps. You can kind of see one here. It's a little bit it's specific in where we, the 30% align rate, where we actually see some packet loss. So that's a bit of an interesting behavior. And of course, as it gets up, as we increase the traffic, we see that packet loss increase, and we even see a little bit of a throughput decrease, which is again something that would be interesting to compare that to another access point. Multi-client. This is where we see some of the test cases. We're increasing the number of clients that are associated with an access point, and seeing what the average throughput is for those clients. And you can see that I've done this for a 2.4 as well as 5.0. I have up to 15 clients that I'm testing in the 5.0 scenario and seeing what the average throughput. And so you can kind of see how that performance has trended, in that scenario. Again, these are all visualizations, completely customizable. They're very easy to generate. Again, probably the most important thing is actually executing the test cases and getting this data into Elasticsearch. And then again, you can customize it in any way that's necessary for the customer, right? Any way the customer really wants to see it. I'm just giving you examples of how we've done it, because information that we felt was interesting. Again, this is where we're talking about executions. This is just the number of executions per day. And you can also see here, I just kind of tracked, how many times have I executed these specific test cases. So rate versus range at 2.4, I've executed 568 times, 457. So I can just track all of my executions. How many times have I executed? And this data may be interesting to the different customers. So that's the dashboard. That's how we actually visualize our data. And I know that we're kind of coming up to the end of the time here, so I probably want to open it up for questions. You can ask me the questions in chat. If we run out of time, I'm certainly happy to answer those offline. If you have any questions that you want to just email me, I'm happy to answer them as well. Does anyone have any, let me see, where am I in the chat? Is there any way to debug if there is an issue that occurs? Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things that you see in these test reports, and I'll just kind of highlight it. This is the velocity sort of simplified test report. If you need a deeper analysis on, for instance, this is just the execution messages and any charts that it outputs, you can actually export that, or print that out to a more detailed test report. This comes back in the standard HTML format that you'd see from essentially iTest. It does take a little bit of time to generate it. Once it's been generated, then you can actually look at every command that you've issued to your different devices and the responses that you got from them. So that'll give you a deeper sort of set of specifications, from the test case to determine why maybe it failed. So here you go. Here's the detailed test report, and so you can see all the different commands that you've issued. Not very exciting when we're just looking at let's see if we get down to something a little more interesting. There you go. Okay, just log into STC. So you can see the different subscription views. And again, this is with deep information here where we can actually see. We'll get down. Eventually, we'll get to some stats here that kind of pop out. And again, these even these dashboards are, these test reports are a little bit more. You can get more detail on them as well. Let's see, result port 1. Yeah, result Wi-Fi 5. Again, so yeah, any command that you issued, so you can notice that these are the STC commands, and these are the results that come back from those STC commands. You can kind of take a quick look in through those. So here's where you're starting to see some of the client results that you would get back as well. Further that, if you actually want to run that test case and actually debug it through iTest has the capability of being set up as an agent, and then what will happen is that when you run the test case, it'll actually be be pushed down to iTest, and you can then use all of the debug capabilities that you would have within iTest.
Hey, David, I was listening in. I didn't see the slides. Are those something just internal or something we can share with the customers?
Oh no, you mean the presentation or the execution?
Yeah, no, the
presentation. Absolutely both. Sure,
okay.
You can absolutely use both. I hope other people were seeing the presentation. I hope it's that I was absolutely sharing my screen. Yeah, so just the answer on that. So there's a data sheet. Going back to that, there's a data sheet that you can actually share and leave with your customer. The PowerPoint, again, I would recommend opening that PowerPoint. You may want to make it a little bit more succinct. They may be able to pull certain things out. Really, when we're talking about this continuous test kit, that's really something that we want to advertise to our customers of what we're building. But maybe you don't need quite the number of slides that I had presented. You just kind of give a highlight of what the components are. But the Wi-Fi solution, yeah, absolutely, I highly recommend you take that to your customers, give them a quick presentation on it. If you need any help with that, again, there'll be the recording of this session, as well as I'm always available to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, sounds good. I have a customer who was interested at this test scenario, so I was looking for some data to share with him before we can have a session. So I think this will help.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things I actually do want to generate. One of the things I really like to generate is like a list of test scenarios. We're looking at those 3 test cases, and it doesn't sound like that's a lot, but really when you drive it out into the data-driven model, and you have that large number of test scenarios that you could run, right? 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 2.4 versus 5, versus TCP, UDP. So you put all those different scenarios, and then you can also even talk about the backwards compatibility of testing with the older protocols. I mean, it really kind of puts out a fairly large list of test scenarios that you can sort of demonstrate or show to a customer, and all those will kind of hit that sweet spot because they all have to do that type of testing. So that's another bit of assets that we'll have available shortly in that location.
Perfect.
Thanks for the question. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I'm sure there's probably at least a few of us that want to catch the end of the basketball game. So I'll let everyone go. If there's any questions that anyone has on either the content, please reach out to me. I'm happy to share that with you or answer any questions for you. If you have any ideas of things that you saw that you would like to see more information on, or you'd like to see some improvements, please reach out to me. Well, that's the last question that I'll answer before the end is what's the average deal size? That's a really good question. It really does depend, and I don't want to sidestep the question, but obviously customers that we're talking about that already have velocity, maybe already have some of the STC capabilities through their Wi-Fi card. The deal size would be quite small because we're just talking about professional service delivering the solution. But if you have a customer that doesn't have a Wi-Fi card, and therefore I wouldn't be able to speak to the cost of the 802.11ax card, but you're obviously talking about velocity solution. So we're certainly in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for that type of a deal. But again, I couldn't speak to the exact cost of it because I'm not. We would have to figure out what the total package and the total components of that package would have to be. So again, not to push aside, but that again for our APT overlays that we have that work with you on these sorts of solutions, they will be able to help build that package up for your customer based on their requirements. All right, everyone, I'm going to share the. Oh, okay, one more question. So I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to I will post this tomorrow after we have one more session tomorrow morning, and I will share the recording with everyone by the end of the day tomorrow. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate everyone coming out to listen to me talk, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Thanks again.